Hey guys, Andy Unspoken Label back in the house. Yeah, Sunday evening. It's been a warm day today as well. It's typical because we were over at Comic Con near us yesterday and it was fairly cool. Today's not. It's been really, really warm. But so we're over to a part of the world today that its temperature usually can get a lot hotter in this. And I'm not sure how hot it is over there. But the gentleman we've got with us will no doubt tell us in a minute. Now, kudos to my friend Crystal for this one. This is one of Crystal's recommendations. We love Crystal over at Spoken Label. And hopefully she'll be on again in our autumn winter season. But she's referred a friend over to us today. Yes, she has a friend called Unspoken. Now, okay, my friend. Now, obviously, first of all, then, you're from the Florida area, are you? Did I hear you tell me before? Or am I wrong?
No, that's right. Thanks for having me, by the way, Andy. Yeah, we are. I am in Florida, stateside, in sunny, way too hot Tampa.
Yeah, it says it all, mate, doesn't it? Us Brits moan about when we get a first chance of a bit of hot weather we get. Go to Florida, it'd be all my that all year at hometown. So now obviously, mate, I heard today talk about not the weather, which we could both probably do all in about an hour, next hour or so anyway. But I want to hear to talk about your spoken word career. Now, obviously, like tell us about then where all your spoken word came from, because I know you've been active for a few years in your area now, haven't you? You've been telling me that before.
Yeah, so my love of writing started when I was 12. I actually, it started because I had a teacher who was a lot smarter than I thought I was. I was in a language arts class and I liked reading, but I really had no interest in grammar or syntax or any of those fun little technicalities that my teacher cared about. And one day he said, I for as an assignment, he had us write a 5-page short story. We had about 3 months to do it, and me being studious and passionate about my learning, I did it the night before. Um, must have
Brilliant.
stayed up till about 3 in the morning, but it was the damnedest thing because something that I spent months putting off. I had an idea popped in my head. I was coming up with this neo noir Silence of the Lambs style detective story, trying to give it as much justice as my 12-year-old brain could muster. And as what was supposed to be this daunting project became a 5 hour speed typing session where I wrote an entire story in one go, having never attempted this before. And I realized I really, really liked it. And we had to read our stories to the class the next day. And from there, I was hooked. And all throughout my schooling, throughout my young adulthood, I would write short stories, poetry, screenplays, novels. And life has a way of happening and getting in your way. So, unfortunately, in my early 20s, I found myself homeless. I had to move to Miami, where I was originally from, to be with family and to get myself sorted out. And I got stuck in a very workaholic, toxic mindset. So, everything that didn't come with a paycheck basically went off the wayside. And I came back to Tampa about in 2018, and 3 years into being in Tampa, I was walking through Ybor City, which is an artistic historic district of Tampa. And I met this gentleman who had a shirt that said, "Ask me to do a poem." I just ran into him while my wife was looking at some plants, and I said, "Okay, hey, do a poem." And he said, "Okay, what kind of poem do you want to hear?" And I said, "Well, I'm not me, again, thinking I'm clever. I'm not going to ask you to do something in iambic pentameter. Just what do you got?" And he said, "Well, first of all, and pardon my language, but this was an exact quote. His exact words were, 'Fuck you, I have poems in iambic pentameter, but I'm going to give you this one instead." And he gave me this beautiful poem about growth. And it was exactly what I needed to hear at that time. And I said, "Hey, I used to love writing. I love poetry. I kind of just fell out of it." And he said, "I have an open mic in about 2 hours. You should go." My wife and I, my wife saw me hemming and hawing and deciding and thinking and said, "Why don't you go?" And I had not written a single word in 8 years. Well, we go to a bar. I take 3 shots of the cheapest whiskey they have. And in about 5 minutes, I wrote a poem kind of detailing everything how I felt about what I thought was my failing to follow my dream when I abandoned writing. I went to the open mic, I performed, and from that moment on, I just got swept up in it. I ended up becoming friends with the gentleman, Dennis Amadeus, who's the guy who had the shirt on. I found out he was the co-founder of a poetry collective here called Growhouse. They took me in, they mentored me, and I have not stopped writing since.
Brilliant. Brilliant stuff to hear that, man. I think you do it. Sometimes it's when the bug bites, and this happened to me, to be honest with you, back in 2007 to 8 territory. I'd had like similar background. I'd been writing when I was younger, stopped. Then I met the right people, and it starts on unrush often, doesn't it? Really, you just can't seem to stop. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean with that. And it's like I know nowadays people want to check you out. I know you told me before you're actually co-running 2 monthly nights now, aren't you? I do one. One takes a heck amount of time also. Tell us about the 2 nights and Steep Poetry and Hot Mic. And how the heck have you got any hair left after running 2 of them a month? That's the next question.
Well, the key with that is spacing things out, giving it time. I've known a lot of poets and a lot of performers who host a weekly event. I do not, and I will not host a weekly event because I know I'm excitable. I want to do a million different things, and a monthly event is manageable. I find my artists, I market the event, I reach out. I know between this and that I have 30 days. So steeped poetry is my success story, for lack of a better term. That's my baby. We started doing that in March of this year at a local coffee shop called Coffee Me, and it was really just having an owner. It's so hard to find a business owner who wants to take a chance on art, especially when it's not some famous big event. It's just a local artist trying to bring things to the community. But he gave me that chance. He said, "Hey, we'll make it work. We'll pay for the marketing and for an artist." So this was my way of paying back what I feel I was given, which is an opportunity as an unknown artist to be able to make a name for myself, to go out there, to endear and enrich myself to my community. So steeped poetry is sort of not a final stage, but a first step for aspiring performers. And that is the third Monday of every month from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. over here in Tampa. And Hot Mic, that is a bit newer. We just finished our third month this past Friday. It's the last Friday of the month. And that is in the middle of Ybor City, which, like I mentioned before, is the historic district. It's also the club district at night. So it's very, very different crowd. That one is more of a belt your heart out. Let's get raw. Let's get honest. If you want to take a couple drinks and get onto the mic, by all means. I think it's really important to have a space where you can be expressive, where you don't have to be afraid of saying something that's off color or unconventional or different, as long as you're respectful of everyone else and nothing is being hurtful or hateful or damaging. I like to think of my events as a place where you're not necessarily doing something for an audience. There is an audience, but it's for you.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think all kinds of creativity, the most important person in the audience is yourself. Because if you're not being honest to yourself when you go on stage, I will say, I've told this people's face from, don't always go down well this, why are you there then?
Yep.
But yeah, I agree with you. But no, brilliant stuff, great stuff. Did you ever envisage when you first got ready back into your creativity, you'd end up actually running a couple of nights a couple of years down the line?
I didn't catch that. You kind of skipped a bit.
Oh, did I skip a bit? Did I? Right. Let's recap if people didn't hear that. What I was asking Unspoken then was, obviously, you started your journey off 3.5 years ago. Did you envisage when you first started in your creativity now, you not end up 3.5 years later, you won't just doing one night, you'd be running 2?
I don't think I would have expected it. There's a lot that poetry and spoken word have brought me that I really would never have imagined as a possibility 3 years ago. I mean, even in the minutia, in the small things that you don't think are going to be affected. Uh, when I got into poetry, when I was into spoken word, I was actually very interested in climbing the corporate ladder. I was at a job where I had found some momentum, and it was right around the time I got into poetry that I said, "Hey, I don't like what I do." And I was in sales, and I never wanted to be in sales, but it's very easy to get caught up in the momentum of things, like I said. So, what poetry has done, aside from giving me the opportunity to create these spaces and to experience a lot of things I wouldn't have seen otherwise, it's given me a sense of perspective because everything in poetry is self reflection. So I take a lot more time for myself to say, is this something I want to do? Is this something benefiting me? Is this something benefiting the community? As opposed to, oh, we're going to do something, I'm all in. I'm a lot more selective and a lot more careful now with my art and a lot more protective than I was 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, I think you tend to be. So the more you get into it, is to care. You take that a lot of the time, and that's what I think. Yeah, I get onto you completely. I agree with you. Now, obviously, you don't just you don't just host two different nights. I think you've been doing some what is it, moonlighting, as we call it in the UK, haven't you?
Yeah,
Well,
a little bit.
yeah, you were telling me before as well. That's all little you got your man with your fingers in a lot of pies, as a way of putting it over here. Now, obviously, I know you've been helping out with the Tampa Downtime Partnership as well. So I want to learn about this when it was at the Riverman Hughes Alleyway Art Show in Tampa Heights, that's a mouthful and a half. So tell us about how you got involved in this project then.
So everything is who you know, they say. And Growhouse, the poetry collective that I'm still a part of, they were contacted by the Tampa Downtown Partnership, which is a new event that I think this was their fourth one that they do quarterly or every 2 months or something like that. And they needed a host because they wanted to bring poetry to the event. And we've seen, I'm sure you've seen it over there in the UK, but here stateside, the last 7 to 8 years have been amazing for poetry. There's been the rise of Rupi Kaur. There have been the Grammys now having a spoken word category. So a lot more people reach out to us for these events, and I've been fortunate enough to just occasionally be available to host. So I went in. The event starts at 6. About 6:30, I just come in, introduce myself, and make myself the most visible, least visible person possible, because I feel like hosting is such a fine art. You want to make sure people are engaged, the energy's up, everyone's exciting, but this is not about you. Nobody turns on American Idol to watch Ryan Seacrest. And obviously you can tell how old I am by that reference.
Oh God, yeah.
But it's a great opportunity to highlight these events, to highlight these arts, whether it's a Tampa Downtown Partnership, or I was able to do a quote unquote rookies versus legends slam a few months ago. And it's just a great way to be part of the community without necessarily stealing the spotlight.
Right, perfectly said. I agree with you completely there with that one, because it's all the goals as well. Because I've done guest
You
hosts
froze up
myself.
again.
Oh, blimey! Yeah, people are wondering we're having one or two issues today here. So right, I'm going to now cheat and knock off my own broadband. Right, okay. Hopefully this will sort the problem out now. Okay, so I do apologise. I was struggling with this today. Now I was going to ask you next, and obviously, but I do agree with you there. There's a big difference between actually just guest hosting and running your own nights, because it's like your work's cut down in half almost immediately. Like, it's great you to turn up. I'm thinking, great, I don't have to worry about the running order, who's going to turn up, where's the guest, where's it, everything like that. So it makes life a lot easier, and brilliantly so. Now, also as well with poetry, I have noticed this in the States a lot as well. Is there a lot of poetry programs coming up on radio stations now as well. So, and I know from talking to you beforehand, you've recently been on Poetry Is on 88.5 WMF recently. So tell us about that experience next.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was on there following a poetry event that I went to, a poetry slam. And so, funny story about poetry is actually it is hosted by two friends of mine, one of which I've known since I've gotten into poetry. The other one I've known for probably 12, 13 years now. A gentleman who was at the community college I was at was a poet, and I knew he was a poet. He knew that I liked to write. He invited me to open mics, and I repeatedly said no. And it wasn't for, it's, I think, really easy. You hear open mic and some people, you say no and someone thinks, oh, they think they're too good for an open mic. I didn't think I was deserving of an open mic at that time.
Hmm.
Imposter syndrome is something that I don't feel is very heavily talked about, but that I do firmly believe every artist suffers from. So I knew that this forward from 2011, 2012 to about 2021 to 2021. And at my second open mic I ever go to, the one after that that I mentioned before, I meet this gentleman again. He's a little bit older, but pretty much looks exactly the same. And I say, "Is that D Rod? Or is that Dennis?" He goes, "Well, my poet name is D Rod." So D Rod and I reconnected. He helped me out through this process, and he kept inviting me on to Poetry Is 88.5 WMNF, because he's had that radio station going on for about 15 years now. And wouldn't you know it, I don't learn a lesson very well because I kept saying no. Um, and finally, I went to this poetry slam that helped me find the confidence that I wasn't experiencing before. And he asked me on, and I said, you know what? What the hell? Let's do it. And it was such an incredible experience because I got to be on the radio. I got to reach out to a bunch of people who probably have never heard of me. And I got to do it with someone I consider a friend, which, if you ask me, that is the biggest reward I could have asked for. This is someone who knew me when I wasn't ready to share my work. It's someone who knew me when I, for those people who are interested in spoken word or in poetry who haven't done it yet, I get asked a lot like, oh, when do you start to feel like a poet? And for the first year and a half, 2 years, the answer was, I'll let you know when I feel like one.
I think my case of it, I've done 15 years now, and I still don't feel like a poet sometimes because I think you
It
do
comes and
some,
goes.
you don't. I think sometimes you feel like, I don't know if you know the saying over in the States, but I hear they saying the imposter syndrome comes up sometimes over here. And I still feel like that to this day sometimes I do, because I think, you know what I mean? Just what you are as people sometimes, I suppose. That's a great experience, that story. Okay, I want to. You told us in the story before last about slams, and I want to learn about this one because you told me about this off mic before, and I want to hear the full story about this. This sounds fascinating. Soul Fried 2024, Pomparan Beach, which was one of the largest regional slums in the nation. I want to learn about your experiences on that because it sounds like you've had some fun with that.
Yeah. So Southern Fried Poetry Slam is currently I believe, the largest regional poetry slam in the nation, like you said. And I've been hearing about them since I got into poetry. And everyone was telling me, you have to go, you have to try it. I have a love-hate relationship with slam because on the one end, it's a lot of fun. I'm a very competitive person, and it's a great opportunity to really polish your pieces and get them to, in many ways, their highest performance level. On the other hand, I'm very competitive, and it's a little bit intimidating going up against these people who've been honing their craft and perfecting it. So for years, people were telling me to go to Southern Fried, and I wouldn't do it. And it was easy because it changes locations every year. So it was in Tennessee, I believe, last year. So I could just tell myself, that's a long drive. I can't make it. I have work. Well, luck would have it, 2024, they go to Pompano Beach, which is a 3-hour drive from where I currently live. I no longer have the excuse that it's too far away. So I spent about a year and a half trying to get on the slam team for Growhouse, my poetry collective. We decided we were going to send a team from Tampa to represent the city. And I did well. I did not do well enough to get onto the slam team. I missed my qualifier. And that was pretty devastating. But I am extremely stubborn. I don't like being told no, like I told you. So I decided to go online, buy myself an individual performer ticket, knowing that the individuals and the people on the slam teams are in direct competition. So my stubbornness then decided to make it harder on myself. But I said, let's see what happens. And I decided which pieces I was going to do beforehand, because like I told you, I have a bad habit of writing a new piece and performing it at a slam for the first time because I'm much less intelligent than I like to think I am. But I wish there was a better reason for that. But I decided, I know which pieces of mine are the crowd pleasers. So I'm going to go with those three pieces and I'm not deviating. And I drove myself down. I went down with some friends actually. And over 3 or 4 days, we performed. And we were ranked out of 150 poets. I am grateful and I am really honored to say that I was able to rank 8th.
Excellent, mate. No, great stuff indeed, that, mate. So it's like, I think I've done slams over in Manchester where we are, and it's the most, I think it's the most terrifying experience you could have, don't you? Doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know what,
but
I've been on in Manchester before now when they have you two of you going on stage at the same time. And you stood there watching that other person perform. And I've stood there thinking, you've sworn, so I can swear here tonight. Is then like I'm stood there thinking, fuck, I've got to try and beat that in a minute. It's not supportive, it's terrifying. Oh god, yeah.
Oh, it really is. And you sit there thinking, oh, how the hell am I gonna beat this guy?
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that coin, conversely, it's invigorating because you're also around these poets who are incredible. So if you can get past, which for me was a bit of a difficult process, but if you can get past your own insecurity, your own ego to say, I'm not going to come here in this moment that I'm not performing. I am not a poet. I am enjoying someone else's poetry. There's so much opportunity for growth. I really saw I saw two things that really hit me. One, I saw how well I can be received outside of my hometown. But more importantly than that, I was enlightened into how far we can really stretch the art form. There's a gentleman, he actually won the entire slam. His name was Dove Dupree. Incredible poet. And he started speaking into his mic. As you know, it's a timed event. You have 3 minutes. You cannot waste your time. He starts his poem and he cuts himself off and he steps on a roach and says, hey, did you guys see that? And I'm wondering, this guy just lost. He's going over time. What's he doing? It was a metaphor because the cockroaches in his poem were a metaphor for the way Black people are treated by white people as an afterthought in the United States and his experience being treated as a pest. And it was this hard right turn into something that I had never seen because it was a brilliant way of saying, hey, pay attention, without actually having to yell at someone, ask them to respect the mic, just this, all right, snap, we're in the story. And there were so many poets like that who had fun with their words, with their performances, and that for me was better than anything else I could have experienced.
Yeah, understandable. I've watched them and I've watched a lot of slam videos in America, and the style of it is so different from what you get in England. I mean, we're doing our own way of it, so I'm a bit behind you with that. No, excellent story indeed. Now, I want to talk to you next about your debut book, which I didn't know about as you told me just before, actually, because people are wondering on the video side of things today. The good clue is there's books here. Because my backdrop is my novel, and obviously Unspoken's at the top there is your debut book as well. So I want to learn first of all then where the title of your book comes from, Unspoken Perspectives.
Absolutely. So this is of course, like you said, the art for the book. On the bottom, it'll say unspoken, and underneath that, perspectives, because it's my first year as a poet. It chronicles those first 365 ish days, ish, because I believe there's one or two poems that were in on day 367 that I liked way too much to exclude. So ish. But it's that first year as a poet where I wanted to illustrate my growth. And it's separated into sections, my opinions on my culture, on identity, mental health, everything from politics. I have a lot of poems that are about political activism, that are about my feelings. And the book, this was my present to myself. This was my gift more than anything else, because more than anything in the world, I've always wanted to be an author. Ever since I wrote that short story at 12 years old, that was my passion. And that never went away. But I have, and I guess I don't know if it's side by side with the imposter syndrome, but I am a perfectionist. I demand flawlessness in my work. And that can be great when I'm performing and I have a piece that has been polished and perfected. But when I'm trying to get something on the page, it's a hindrance. So this was my way of saying, I'm going to create this. I'm going to put it out into the world. I'm going to self-publish this book because I don't want someone telling me what can and can't be in it. I know that I hold very lofty dreams that someday Sorry about that. Sunny Florida thunderstorms.
Oh, is it really? Wow.
Yeah, Tampa is, believe it or not, I believe the lightning capital of the world, or at least the lightning capital of the country. But we have what was I? This was my way of getting a book out there, of doing it my way. If hopefully I have a traditional publisher with a future book someday, I can comfortably collaborate and compromise knowing that at least my first book was entirely mine. And more than that, I consider this book a living document because, like I said, I demand perfection. None of these poems are finished, in the fact that I don't believe I will ever have a quote unquote finished poem, because I have poems that I've been writing for 10 years that I wrote in high school that I go back, that I edit, or that I wrote 3 years ago when I was first getting into poetry and decide, well, I like the beginning, but it doesn't end the way it should anymore. So this book, alongside with being my glorified vanity project, if we're being completely honest, is a way of me sharing with people my artistic process. And I hope shows an approachability to art, because you don't need a giant publisher. You don't need 20 years in the writing and experience. You don't need to be previously published. And most importantly, your work doesn't have to be perfect. None of my pieces are finished, but they're ready.
Agreed. I'm always a believer with any sort of art, writing wise, when is a piece ever finished? Like I've got pieces, like say, just when I first got performing 15, 16 years ago, I can look back at them and I think they were great at the time. But I look back at them, they didn't say right. I'm thinking, it's never complete. It never is. I think if you ever complete a piece, it's then time to pack it all in. You know you're not going to beat it.
Yeah, you're done. It's over.
You're done. Completely agree with you. Good luck with the book, definitely. Now, I want to wrap up now, obviously, look, conscious of the time. I want to give you plenty of time to do some pieces in the second half. But I know you've been in a short film recently as well, which I was watching on YouTube this morning. I very much enjoyed this as well. We Are the Creatures. So you made me smile before this one spoken, because it sounded like you're just like me, where you stumble into things sometimes. So I want to learn that. I want to learn the story about this one, mate. Please, mate.
Yeah. So I have the gentleman that I told you I originally got into poetry with, Dennis. He's one of my mentors, and you'll hear me say a lot that this person is my mentor. This is one of my mentors. I have a lot of mentors. I've been very lucky. Whenever I host, I always say, they say it takes a village to raise a child. I like to say it takes a city to raise a poet.
Okay.
And I have this gentleman, Daytime, he mentored one of my mentors. And he posted on Facebook one day, does anyone want to make a short film? I'm a huge cinephile. I grew up with a TV in front of me, basically. And I said, hey, let's do it. Back in the early days of YouTube, I have videos that I like to pretend are no longer there. But it seemed like a fun opportunity to just help a friend out. It was really simple as that. Well, I get there and he's submitting this, and he tells me that he wants to submit this to a film festival and he wants to market it and he wants to build up his portfolio. I said, well, okay, whatever you need, just let me know. And it's funny because it started off as a little project. It's kind of getting a little bigger now. But even cooler than that is I love collaborating with artists because you get to develop other ideas. So as I was working with that with him, I started thinking about what I could do to combine poetry and film. So keep an eye out. I do have a series I'm working on with that filmmaker and other filmmakers to create cinematic style videos for poets and their poetry.
No, good luck with it, mate. Definitely with that one. So, see, because people are guessing 80, you've got plenty on the go. So, now, obviously, wrapping the podcast now. What plans do you have next then? Do you have a launch in mind for your book when it's out later in the year?
Yeah, so I'm hoping for November, I'm going to do a book release, an official launch. That is my big project. That is the number one priority as of now. And what I want to do, I want to do something a little bit different that I actually haven't yet talked about. So better no time like the present.
Exclusive.
There you go. But I've seen a lot of really, really cool book releases and reveals, and I decided if I want to do this book justice, it can't be just about me. So I am in the middle of going back to the poems that are in this book and redefining them as team pieces. So each poem, I'm going to work with another poet who mentored, influenced, or helped grow me. And I'm going to do that piece as a collaborative performance with that poet.
Ooh, sounds interesting. Straight away, some brilliant stuff. Sounds good luck to me there. Have you got anything else coming up you want people to be aware of then before we do the hard sell?
As of right now, there's probably something I'm forgetting. But I guess big thing, just when you follow me on social media, as soon as I remember to post, you will find out about it.
Yeah, keep an eye on social media, definitely, because you're a man in demand. That's one way of putting it, mate, definitely. Okay, give us a hard sell. Where can people get hold of your social media?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at an unspoken poet, all one word, an unspoken poet. Do not look up Unspoken because you will find a Christian rock band. I promise you.
I found him. I found him. I was looking at it this morning and I thought, no, this isn't my guest today.
This can't be. I promise you it's not. I have I think you just told me what one of the poems I'm going to be performing for you later is based on that. But yeah, if you look up an unspoken poet, I do have the shirt coming, the book coming out. I do also have merch with my logo right here.
Brilliant.
I also have notebooks somewhere. There's a 50-50 chance that I'm about to pull out a notebook, and a 50-50 chance that I just grabbed the wrong thing. So bear with me.
Oh, something I do that.
Wrong thing it is. But I have pictures on my Instagram. I sell shirts for $20. The notebooks are Moleskine notebooks that are $18. Everything is made high quality, recyclable materials. The shirts are pre-shrunk and are water resistant with moisture wicking. But more importantly, just go on my page, follow not just me, but any poets that you can. Follow Growhouse Tampa, and just immerse yourself in the art, whatever it is that you want to do. I hope that my book can help inspire by showing how approachable this is. I don't have a college degree. Unfortunately, life happened and I dropped out of college. I don't have my doctorate. I don't have years of experience going out and traveling the world. I've been to a few places, but what poetry is not. It's one of the few art forms that is not limiting based on privilege and based on where you are. Yes, some of those opportunities can be affected by that, but at the end of the day, all you need to do to be a poet, you need a pen and a paper.
True.
That's all.
All you need, yeah. No, I agree completely. Perfectly said there, mate, with that one. So, right, I think it's a good way to wrap up part one. That so it's been great. This I've really enjoyed this first half. So, hang around, everybody. We will be back in 2 shakes on the dice.